With no further ado, we'll jump back into it now, resuming with Aaron Murtagh and art. Where do we draw the line? Throughout his speech, Aaron paints a picture on the ways which we define and judge art, as well as its use as a canvas for social change.
Don't forget these. Who here has been to an art gallery or a museum? Have you ever found yourself looking at a painting, something like this, that's just a few colored splotches on a canvas, and thought to yourself, why? Why is this, of all things, considered art when a literal 2-year-old could do it? But I want you to think about something. I want you to think about what is art, and more so, what is good art? Art is something that we have all experienced in some form or another, an intrinsic part of our lives. Art is this uniquely human achievement, unique to us and fundamental to who we are, with the earliest art being created by humans over 73,000 years ago. But yet, it's so difficult for us to define art, and even harder to clearly define what good art is. These very questions have been the preoccupation of humans for millennia. You have academics writing thousands upon thousands of words on it, who have studied the topic for years. So one thing's clear. These questions are neither quick nor easy to answer. But given that we have only about 5 minutes left, we're going to have to move fast. A quick Google search will tell you that art is the application or expression of human creative skill or imagination, producing works primarily to be appreciated for their beauty or emotional power. Dive a little deeper and you'll see art described as the process of deliberately arranging elements in a way to evoke the senses or emotions. But these definitions only really bring with them more questions. Is art a process or a result? Is there an inherent connection between beauty and art? Are there objective criteria for art? Where do we draw the line? Pun intended. Now, I spent my summer reading many articles on this topic, and I learned one thing for sure. I really need to find something better to do with my time. But don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with all the details. I do intend to finish this talk with everybody hopefully still awake. So instead, I'm going to tell you about something far more interesting. Making bread. Bear with me now, I do promise this is relevant. Well, I love making bread. Not because I have this particular love for bread. Don't get me wrong, it's great and all. But if I really wanted a loaf, I'd pop down to the local Tesco's. I wouldn't spend the many months of sleepless nights and heartbreak carefully nurturing a starter. So if it's not for the love of bread, then why bother doing it at all? It's that feeling of the dough in my hands, that feeling of finding the perfect balance of flour and water, of meticulously perfecting a skill. A painter doesn't paint because they love looking at paintings, just as much as a writer doesn't write because they love to read. We don't create art for a love of the resulting product, but for a love of the process. To truly appreciate art is to recognize the intent that goes behind every stroke on a canvas, the emotion that goes into every line of a poem or a song. Because art is just as much about what we do, about the destination, as it is about why we do it, the journey. Now, on to that second question. Is there an inherent connection between art and beauty? Well, art and beauty are fundamentally very different things. Beauty more so depends on who's looking at it, whereas art is about who created it. Art is a means to state an opinion or a feeling, a means of grasping the world or creating an entirely new world. Whereas beauty is whatever part of that or anything else that makes us feel positive or grateful. Beauty can be found in a snowy mountain scene, whereas art is the oil interpretation of it hung up in a gallery, the photograph of it shown to friends and family, the music score recreating the scene with crotchets and quavers. However, art is not necessarily positive. It can be deliberately hurtful or displeasing. It can make you consider things that you would rather not. But if it evokes that emotion in you, then it is art. Beauty makes us feel, but art lets us share and express those feelings. Furthermore, not only does art have this power to evoke emotion and to create new worlds, but also to revolutionize the very world we live in. A bold claim, I know. But what art does is give a voice to the voiceless. Powerful art, themed around social issues and pressing matters, has this incredible ability to bring about reform both in social and political spheres. Socially engaged art can ignite outrage and stimulate social change. And this is not some new thing either. For centuries, art has been used to create change and spread social and political messages. Art movements have played a vital role in social changes. A great example of this can be seen in the art movements after World War I. Following World War I, artists began to reject many of the avant-garde styles of Cubism and Futurism that had been the very center of artistic expression in Europe. And in their place, they began to explore movements such as classicism, abstractionism, and satire as a means to portray that indescribable pain and loss that was suffered. Likewise, art has played an incredibly important role in the fight for civil rights, as can be seen in how it's been used in the fight for women's rights. Now, the role of art, and more so the artist, is just as important today as it was all those years ago. Many of today's most well-known artists and creators use their talent to advocate for social justice and to educate the general public. See, artists, through their expressive abilities, can challenge the status quo, shift imagery, and evoke emotion in ways that traditional political approaches rarely can. And a great example of this is Malika Favre, a French illustrator based out of Barcelona. Malika's artwork reflects themes around women's empowerment. Her work is characterized by a bold, strong, sensual, and independent expression of femininity. Now, as you can see, her work is not just stunning visuals, but it also takes a powerful stance on various social issues. You see, today, artist communities are turning into a space for open discussion and conversation about political and social issues. Now, we did get a little off track there, but if you recall from the beginning of this talk, I posed 3 questions. Is art a process or a result? Is there an inherent connection between art and beauty? And that final question we have left to answer. Are there objective criteria for art? Where do we draw the line? Now, unlike the others, the answer to this last question is fairly simple. We don't. To objectify art, to say one piece is better than another, to say one piece is worth more than another, to say one piece has more a right to call itself art than another, is to miss the point of art entirely. Now, while I still may be a little bit bitter from failing my transition year art exam, I think the point still holds some merit. To judge art is to cut off its wings. It traps it in a cage. Art is all about emotion. It all makes us feel something different. Nobody can judge art. Nobody has the right to say one piece of art is better or more art than another, because art makes us all feel something different. Whether it be a book, a poem, a movie, a play, a photograph, or the very talks you're hearing tonight, they all evoke emotion. They are all art. Anything that comes from the human mind that makes us feel is art. As Abhijit Naskar put it, even science is art when it flows pure and free. Literature is art when it flows pure and free. Mathematics is art when it flows pure and free. Any act of the mind that flows pure and free is art, for freedom is the very soul of art. Thank you.